This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, I'm just going to make sure you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And then I can only see to Amber, Commissioner Waldruff. I cannot see the full. there we go. Okay, well, we'll see how this goes.
Testing.
Very good. I can hear you. Perfect. We'll have to work on adjusting the camera angle for anyone on Zoom and anyone watching to ensure we get all 5 commissioners in. I don't know if
Can you see me now?
you guys can. No, not
Okay.
yet. What you can do is probably go sit in my spot. I can see you there. Okay, well, we will have to work on that for next time. In the meantime, Commissioner Jordan, if you want to move my name out of the way and can move. Just because I think for people on Zoom that are watching in and recording, it's not catching all of that. Very good. Thank you. I can see everyone. Okay, so welcome to today's 2 o'clock Commissioners Consent Agenda meeting. It is January 10th, 2023. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. Welcome to the 2 new commissioners, Commissioner Waldruff and Commissioner Jordan, as well as all of us that are newly elected. Again, Commissioner Kearns and Commissioner French. I am traveling on business for Wasac in the county, so I will not be in person today, but on Zoom. So there were no written comments that were received for today's agenda. So then I will start out with our open public forum, and I will look to my fellow commissioners there to make sure if there's anyone in the audience. But I will open up the open public forum for anyone wishing to testify on any items that are not currently on our agenda today. I'm not seeing anyone on Zoom because I can see Zoom. Is there anyone in the audience?
Not that have indicated they want to testify.
Okay. Second call for anyone wishing to testify on any items other than on today's printed agenda. I will do third and final call for anyone wishing to testify on items that are not on our agenda today. Okay, I'm seeing no one on Zoom. And just give me the heads up that no one in the audience there. No one in the audience? Okay, then I will close the open public forum and we will start with item number 2, which is a resolution to elect the chair of the Board of County Commissioners for Spokane County for the calendar year 2023, and then also to elect the vice chair of the Board of County Commissioners for the year 2023. Since this is a new procedure, since we have not had 5 commissioners before and we have not had it be by vote, our legal counsel looked into this and that we can continue to elect the chair and vice chair by motion, which we have done historically in the past, or we can follow Robert's rules and do a nomination process. If we choose to do a nomination process, then we would also need to decide if we want to do that by a voice vote or by a ballot. So I'm going to look to my 4 other commissioners to see which you would like to do, if you'd like to continue to do it by motion or if you'd like to do it by nominations.
I'm fine with nominations. That's how we've always done it. I don't see why to change it.
We've done it by motion.
Or yes, I'm sorry. Yes, you make a motion, nominate. Yes, move that someone be chair. I'm fine with continuing that.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Waldron, I saw your hand up as well.
Gotta get used to the microphone. Okay, yes, that seems like a good process.
Okay, very good. Then I will look to my fellow commissioners for a motion to elect the chair of the Board of County Commissioners of Spokane County for the calendar year 2023. Commissioner Waldron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion to elect Commissioner CUNY for another year as chair of this body.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner French?
No, I'm not seconding. I was going to make a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a second. So there is a motion and a second to elect Commissioner CUNY as the chair for 2023. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion on the floor to nominate Commissioner CUNY, or Commissioner Kearns as chair of the board for 2023.
Okay. Mark, I see you've come in as,
I was just waiting for a question, Commissioner. It sounded, I would have assumed there might be a parliamentary question coming.
yes. So with a motion, I guess then it's an amended motion, so we vote on the amendment to the, I need a second to the amendment.
Does the maker of the motion need to accept the amendment? Is that the process? Oh,
No, actually, first of all, we need a second to Commissioner French's motion, if there's going to be one.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and then you will need to deal with that motion before you deal with the second motion.
Okay. So there is an amendment to the first motion to move.
Commissioner CUNY, I would like to add another amendment to change that to Commissioner French as chair for the board of 2023.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Let me just make sure I get all this down properly. Okay, so then we have now a second amendment to the original motion. So that motion is to elect Commissioner French, and it's a motion and a second. So it's elect Commissioner French to the chair for 2023. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor.
I'll speak to it. I think Commissioner French has the experience to lead this board. He's been chair a number of times over his tenure as a county commissioner. He runs a very efficient meeting. We tend to get quite a bit done when he is chair. He knows the processes, procedures, and like I said, he's done this several times, and I think he would be a fantastic chair. We've got a lot of important items that we got to get done this year, and he can lead us in that direction.
Any other discussion? Commissioner French?
Yeah, Madam Chair. So I certainly appreciate the motion to serve as chair. I will state for the record that when I ran for election last fall, it was not to serve as the chair of the Board of County Commissioners, but to serve as a county commissioner for District 5, and that's what I'm dedicated to do for the next 2 years and stuff. So, you know, the role of the chair is really one of service to the board. It's one where you really don't have any more authority over the rest of the board members. We're all 5 equal commissioners with a vote to be able to move things forward, and the chair does not have any authority over the board and stuff. So I've been through the situation on the board. I've also been here when one of our members served as the chair for WASAC, and know what that experience is like, and know what we have to do to be able to continue to move the board forward and stuff. And so I'm more than happy to serve in that capacity, and I appreciate Commissioner Kearns' nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Commissioner French becoming chair of the Board of County Commissioners for 2023, please say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Nay. So that motion does not, that amendment does not carry. So the next motion on the floor is for appointing Commissioner Kearns as, electing Commissioner Kearns, excuse me, as chair for the Board of County Commissioners for 2023. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to rise in support of Commissioner Kearns as being the chair for 2023. This is going to be a challenging year, not only transitioning from 3 to 5 commissioners, but also having to conduct business for the county. And keep in mind that we're here to serve the business of the county. Having leadership in that position that's actually going to be here is going to be critical. And otherwise, we will be stalemated waiting for a full board. Keep in mind that if one of us is not here, then it's difficult to break a tie. And as we went through the calendar for yesterday, talking about who is going to be here and who is not going to be here for next year, I think Commissioner Cooney failed to mention to my fellow seatmates that are new that one of the things that the WASAC chair does is visits the other counties in the state. This is what Commissioner Milkey did, and this is what the problem or practice was prior to COVID. Now, since COVID, that has not that did not happen, but now that we're post-COVID, fully anticipate that in addition to all of the other duties with regard to being chair for WASAC, you will also have the chair visiting other counties. Keep in mind there's 38 other counties, and even on a good day, they all meet either Monday or Tuesdays of the week, and even on a good day, being able to hit 2 counties in one day is a challenge. So in addition to the other meetings that Commissioner Cooney is going to be involved in, you can look at probably another 18 meetings that she will not be present at. So out of a year of 52 meetings, if you take out vacation time, board travel for us and breaks, there's a total of 25 meetings that we will not have a chair. That's problematic in terms of being able to move the business forward for the county. And you can see what a challenge it is to try and chair this meeting remotely. And for the last 5 meetings of this board, I've chaired because I was here in the chamber. When you're having a public hearing and you've got people out in the audience that want to express a willingness to talk to the board and enter information in the public record, you need to be able to see what's happening in the chamber. And absent that, it becomes very awkward to be able to do the meeting. So Commissioner Kearns has led the board twice before, and I have every bit of confidence that he will do an excellent job for us this next year and be able to move the business of the county forward. So thank you.
So I guess I will comment on that I will say that I take offense that I have lied to the commissioners and not giving my full calendar. That is something that we can take up with Eric Johnson because he and I have discussed it, that it is most important for any president of the organization to take care of their county first. And that's what I intend to do. Yes, there's several, I believe 22 counties were seen this last year by Jamie Stevenson because his seatmates were very supportive and helpful with him. I understand that mine may not, so I intend to be at my county commissioner meetings. Those last 5 that you had to do for me were busy times for WASAC, but I will not be doing that again next year. So, so those are how those meetings are working. And I will definitely be talking to the county commissioners if I choose to do some of these other things. But I think everything that's been on my calendar so far has already been, I did last year as vice president. That I'll be doing this year as president, other than there was a few things in December that I've done in addition. Any further discussion?
Thank you. say thank you for the nomination. It would be an honor to serve as chair. As stated, I've done it twice before. I think I've been effective at it. I've been honest, I've been fair, and I've led us in, my opinion, a positive direction. And just again, stating for the record, I'd be honored to be chair again and help facilitate our meetings.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of supporting Commissioner Kearns for chair for 2023, please
Aye.
say aye.
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 Nay.
Opposed? Sorry,
Nay.
Sorry.
nay. Motion does not carry. So that would take us to the original motion of appointing the Commissioner CUNY for chair for 2023. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Waldron.
So I did nominate Commissioner CUNY to be chair for 2023. I've watched her run the meetings over the last year. I think she's done an amazing job. I've also seen her step up around just regional challenges and leadership, from homelessness, doing a lot of work in the last year. It's a big regional issue that I'm looking forward to working with all of our cities here and trying to come to some better practices here in Spokane County so we can see some changes happen. And I've seen her step up. I also saw her provide some real regional leadership around the American Rescue Plan, ARPA funds, and trying to bring together all the different jurisdictions and business community around that process early on last year. So just, I guess I don't have concerns about her ability to lead an effective meeting. Sometimes one of us is going to be remote, and we all have schedules and vacations. I think she's done a great job with WASAC, and having her be the chair of WASAC really brings a lot of opportunity to Spokane County in the next year. So that's why I'm supporting Commissioner CUNY as chair for next year.
Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to first of all say it's just an honor to be here and be part of this board. I'm looking forward to learning from the experience of all of my colleagues who have served regardless of party and have great experience, ideas, and history to bring to the table. I think I'm supportive of the motion to elect Commissioner CUNY as the chair. I'm looking for ways that this board, which is a new structure, can really function to the best of its ability, and I appreciate some ideas that Commissioner CUNY's expressed around trying to develop board norms. How do we function in this new environment? I think we can figure out the practicalities around, is there anybody testifying if people are remotely participating? I think that's just part of being a good team, is trying to come up with a norm around something like that. So I appreciate if Commissioner CUNY is willing to serve as chair, and I am looking forward to working with everybody up here to function to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Any further discussion from anyone else there?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would speak against the motion, and I think the comments from Commissioner Waldron demonstrate the difference between county government and city government. We do not have a leader on this board. We are all leaders. And the chair, in past practice, is the face for the board. But it's the board that takes actions. It's the board that takes leadership, not an individual and stuff. And so Commissioner CUNY was out there theoretically representing the board, not herself and stuff. So there are different opportunities to represent yourself individually, but when you start to take on credit for the work that the board is doing, that's not being honest with the public. When you look at the role of the chair, you basically lead the meetings, you work with the CEO and the clerk to prepare the agenda, you present the position of the board to the public, again, not your personal position, the position of the board to the public, and the chair has no authority over the other four of us. None. It is not like the council president position at city council where the council president does have a leadership role. Here, that is not the case. It has been the experience for both Commissioner Kearns and myself is that the chair has taken positions independently of us without our support. And I find it interesting that you list the ARPA or the ARP funds because that was an initiative that she started out with zero interaction from Commissioner Kearns or myself. We found out about it after she had already put together the agenda. That's not the way that this board is supposed to function. You do not act independently of the board. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself out on an island. And so we're going to be dealing with another situation later on today where, again, the chair has ignored the will of the majority of the board. And that's just not the kind of leadership that this position demands. It's not the kind of leadership that I think the community is hoping from us, and that we've delivered in the past. We've all taken an oath to serve the best interest of this community, and we do that as a body. We don't do that as individuals. As I indicated yesterday, this new form of government is going to create some challenges for all of us. It's also going to create some opportunities. As I said yesterday, I'd like to be able to see us go into at least a half-day or full-day retreat and just start hammering this stuff out, identify how we're going to be able to work and how we're going to be able to move the business of the community forward, and do it in a way that's respectful, do it in a way where we can agree to disagree, find solutions, and move the community's interests forward. Commissioner Waldriff and I have served on boards and committees together before and have found common ground. And I believe what you'll find here on the board is probably about 99% of the issues are going to be pretty straightforward and clear. We're really talking about 1% of the business that'll come before the board that we might disagree. And if we do disagree, then we'll find a way to address that. My history goes back to the city council as well as on this board. And I've had the privilege of working with some very outstanding Democrats who might have a different perspective on issues, but we were able to work together because early on, and I think specifically about my relationship with Steve Corker when we were on the city council, and Steve is the past chair of the Democratic Party, and I obviously am a Republican, but we committed that we were going to work for the best interest of the city, and we made two commitments to each other. One, we never lie to each other. Two, we never personalize an issue. Those help you move issues forward. Those help you move legislation forward. Again, it's not about us. It's about what are we doing for our community to move it forward. So for all of those reasons, I'm not going to be supporting this nomination because this is going to take a lot of work, and having a chair that's not going to be present is going to be difficult for the rest of us. Trust me, I've been here before, and it will unfortunately happen again. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussions? I will just state.
I was just going to say, Commissioner CUNY, please don't take offense to this. The chair is a position that I personally think that the chair needs to be present. They need to be in the room. It makes it difficult to chair virtually, And I mean, with your very laudable commitments to Wasac, to Hutton Settlement, to Fairchild Air Force Base with the Civic Commander, and you're traveling with that. As stated on multiple occasions yesterday when we were going through the calendar, you're traveling with your husband and your family business, and then personal vacations. I mean, all of those things take an individual away from the county, out of the boardroom and out of the hearing room. But so I just, in my opinion, I think we need a chair that is present and has a schedule and has a calendar that can accommodate the work that comes with being a chair.
Okay. I guess I will make a brief comment that I think it's very sad that the two of you have not talked to me or had any discussion about any of your feelings such as that, as I've been chair this entire year. And this is my second time being chair. So I will now call for the question. All those in favor of supporting Commissioner CUNY for chair for 2023, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. Thank you. That will then take us to the motions for electing the vice chair for 2023. Is there any motions for a vice chair for 2023?
I would like to nominate Commissioner Kearns as vice chair.
I'll second that motion.
Are there any amendments to that motion? Seeing none, any discussion then on the motion of electing Commissioner Kearns as vice chair? Seeing none, I will call for the question. All those in favor of supporting Commissioner Josh Kearns for vice chair for 2023, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, that takes us to the next part of our agenda. I guess I should have asked before, are there any items on 3, 4, or 5 that you would like to take separately?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to take item 5F separately.
Okay. Is there a motion that someone would like to make on the rest of those items?
Commissioner Keeney, I move to approve items 3, 4, and 5, including all sub-items with the exception of item 5F, as presented on today's January 10th, 2023 consent agenda.
Second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve items number 3, 4, 5, and all sub-items excluding 5F on today's printed agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye, motion passes unanimously. That will take us then to item number 5F to be taken separately. I'll look to my fellow commissioners for a motion.
Madam Chair, I would like to nominate Tom Simpson as the appointment for the airport board to fill out the remaining term of Colin Sprague.
I'd like to make a motion to amend that motion. Oh, sorry.
Chris,
Sorry.
Jordan, we need the second first.
My apologies.
That's okay.
I'll second the motion to appoint Tom Simpson.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to appoint Tom Simpson to the airport board. Now, Commissioner Jordan.
I'd like to make a motion to table or continue that topic for 2 weeks to give some additional time for the new commissioners to review the various applicants for the position.
Excuse me, I believe Commissioner Jordan, you said table, but I believe you originally said continue, and I think you wanted to be clear on that.
Continue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to continue the appointment for 2 weeks. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would rise up against the motion to continue. It has been the practice for this board for as long as I've been on it to go through a process where applicants to a board and committee submitted their names for the position, and when majority of the board felt that they were comfortable moving somebody forward, that went to the clerk and then came forward to the board for adoption. That process is the process that you just reaffirmed when you voted to approve the other committee assignments in item 5. So you've already respected that process for the board that was here before you took office. So I find it interesting that it was good enough process for all of those, but not for this one. Commissioner Kearns and I had gone through the process of reviewing and made that selection last year with the expectation that it would have been processed last year. It did not happen, hoping that that work that was a carry forward for last year would be respected, and that evidently is not going to be the case. So I'm going to go ahead and provide the board with some background here that I think is important for you to be aware of, and how this process has been altered to achieve what I believe is a political outcome that is not in the best interest of the community. So if you'd just hand that out, and if you could tee up the PowerPoint for me, I would appreciate it. The airport board and the airport assets are jointly owned between the city and the county. The city has a 50% interest, the county has a 50% interest. And that through an interlocal agreement creates a board that has balanced representation on it. There are 7 members on the board. There's a representative for the elected body for the city of Spokane, that's Brian Biggs, as council president. There's a representative from the county, which is myself, county commissioner. Then there are 2 people that are selected by the Board of County Commissioners, 2 people selected by the city council, and 1 that's a joint appointment between the city and the county. This year has been a challenging year for the airport. But I'll give you a little bit of background, a little bit of history, and starting out with Larry Crowder, who's the CEO for the airport. Larry Crowder has also just finished a year as the president for the National American Association of Airport Executives. This is the organization of airport executives throughout the country. And he served a year as president, elected unanimously by airport executives from across this nation. Mr. Crowder is nationally recognized as a leader in the aerospace industry and has led SIA to achieve national recognition for its customer service performance and growth. He's led the effort to bring hundreds of millions of dollars to SIA and the region. Under Mr. Crowder's leadership, SIA is in construction of the first phase of a major expansion to the property, and the first expansion in over several decades. The loss of Mr. Crowder would set SIA back 20 years and take it off the list for federal funding for years to come. He has testified in congressional hearings at the request of legislators from across this country. Mr. Crowder has been subjected to harassment from a board chair, lied to by this chair, undermined, and has had his employment placed at risk, and yet he is dedicated to this community. There is no other individual that can do what Larry has done. So I ask you to please fill this vacancy with a board member that will be supportive of this region, the airport, the S3R3 that the airport is party to, and the other initiatives. So I'm going to take you through a sequence of events that we've gone through this year. I was hoping that we would be past this, but evidently it is not, because our chair has chosen to bring forward and re-energize this initiative. So I'm going to take you through a sequence of events. The airport board, Mr. Sprague was the chair, and I was the vice chair. And in March and April, it came to my attention that there was tension between Mr. Sprague and Mr. Crowder. And so I met individually with the two of them to identify what was the stress that was getting in the way of the airport. Met with Mr. Sprague, and he felt that he wasn't getting the respect that he deserved as chair from Mr. Crowder. Mr. Crowder felt that Mr. Sprague was overstepping his authority as chair, violating the board's bylaws and interfering with Mr. Crowder's staff. So I worked out a situation between the two of them where Mr. Crowder would include Mr. Sprague in more functions at the airport, and in exchange for that, I offered to provide greater involvement as the vice chair, so that it would provide a level of insulation between Mr. Crowder, or Mr. Sprague and Mr. Crowder. Then in June of 2023, or June 23rd of 2022, an email from the county clerk to Kelly Fukai, who was an employee of SIA at the time, notifying her that Phelps-Field Master Plan resolution had been removed from the June 28, 2022 agenda by Commissioner Cooney, Chair of the Spokane Board of County Commissioners. The reason given by the chair for the removal is that a couple of the commissioners have further questions on the delegation of authority provision. We are required by FAA to provide a master plan for general aviation airports, which is what Phelps is, commercial airports, which is what SIA is. And that plan identifies everything that's on the airport at that time, and then it identifies projects that you want to take and make improvements to the airport over the next 5 to 10 year period. The FAA also allows for what's called pen and ink revisions. So what that means is that as you finish a project, you want to update that master plan by doing a pen and ink change so that the FAA has an accurate map of what that airport looks like, so that it considers future grant opportunities. It has the most up-to-date plan for what that airport is. In 2018, the master plan for SIA was adopted. It was adopted by the airport board, Board of County Commissioners, and the City Council. In that plan, it said that the county and the city were delegating the airport board to make pen and ink changes. They weren't changes to the master plan, they were just updates to that plan. That document was approved by Mr. Sprague at the time, this board, including Commissioner Cooney, and the City Council, with full knowledge of that delegation provision. Then when the Phelps-Field Master Plan came forward, that same delegation was indicated in the master plan for Phelps-Field. There was a hiccup in that the resolution that was presented to the board, airport board, did not include the language as it was in the SIA master plan resolution. So the attorney, trying to harmonize the two documents, made a change. Mr. Sprague and Commissioner Cooney took exception to the fact that the new resolution had that language in it. And Commissioner Cooney unilaterally pulled it off the agenda. We have a standing rule that no single commissioner can pull an agenda item off the agenda. That is done by a majority of the board. And I do have all of this documented, so if you want to see the documentation, I can provide all of that for you. Ms. Fukai notified Mr. Crowder. Mr. Crowder then called me, because I'm the representative for the county, to the airport board and said, hey, I'm told that there are concerns from the commissioners. What are the concerns? This was news to me because I had no idea that there was any concern about the document. So I then started to investigate what was the nature of this, and then discovered that Commissioner Kearns also had no concerns about the document. So the email given to Ms. Fukai indicating that two commissioners had concerns was a fabrication. Neither one of us had been communicated with as to whether there was any concerns about the document. And as I said earlier, the document that we had in front of us was virtually the same except for address as the one that we had already approved for SIA, the second largest airport in the state. Prior to this point, nobody had contacted myself with any concerns about the resolution, even though I was the vice chair, even though I'm the representative for the county. On June 24th, Mr. Sprague sends an email to Brian Wurst, the attorney for SIA, asserting that the 2022 Feltzfield Master Plan resolution before the board was not what was approved by the airport board, and suggesting that there was an effort to deceive the board and the city council about the delegation of authority for amendments to the Feltzfield Master Plan. The email suggests that Mr. Crowder was attempting to deceive the board and should be excluded from any discussions in the matter. And that is in the email from Mr. Crowder, or Mr. Sprague, to the attorney. Mr. Sprague demanded that a meeting with Mr. Wurst that afternoon to discuss how to deal with this, and that the meeting should not include Mr. Crowder, the CEO for the airport. Mr. Wurst said that he could not comply with that request, and that any meeting would include Mr. Crowder. There's two reasons for that. One, Mr. Crowder has an employment agreement with the airport. Two, there is no authority for the chair of the board for the airport to direct legal counsel. The bylaws for the airport clearly say legal counsel is directed by the board, not the chair. The chair for the airport board has two responsibilities by definition in the bylaws. One, chair the meeting. Two, appoint committee members to two committees, engineering and finance. That's the total amount of responsibility for the chair, and yet Mr. Sprague went well beyond that in dealing with this issue. And again, to this point, still not been contacted by anybody other than Mr. Crowder, and then I followed up with Mr. Wurst. At the meeting, Mr. Wurst explained that he changed the language in the 2022 Feltzfield resolution so as to harmonize it with the 2018 SIA Master Plan resolution because, in his words, we had already gone through an extensive conversations about the delegation of authority in 2018, and the 2018 document was the most impactful because it dealt with SIA, not Feltzfield. Please note that the 2018 SIA resolution entailed a great deal of discussion and education. It was adopted by all parties unanimously, including Mr. Sprague and Commissioner Cooney. So if in fact there was a legitimate concern about the delegation of authority, they had already taken an action to make that delegation as it relates to SIA. And June 24th, after that meeting, Mr. Crowder met with me to file 2 complaints against Mr. Sprague. One, creation of a hostile work environment because of the email that he had sent to the attorney trying to circumvent the CEO. And 2, tortious interference with Mr. Crowder's employment contract. If you want, I can go through the litany of issues that relate to that, but I won't for time's sake today. The complaints were filed with me because I was the vice chair, and the complaint was against the chair. And the complaints were, and I was the county representative, and Mr. Sprague was the county appointment. In 2024, June 2024, I then I contacted Mr. Wurst, notified him that I had received the complaints, and then board members were notified individually of the complaint as well. So for the next month, I, as the vice chair, the representative of the county, conducted an internal investigation as to the merits of the claims that were presented to me. A couple of the attorneys from Spokane County and SIA attorney Brian Wurst were involved in the investigation. The investigation identified that there was sufficient evidence to support the following violations. Violation of airport board bylaws defining the authority of the chair. Violation of airport hostile work environment policy. Tortious interference with Mr. Crowder's employment contract. On July 22nd, Mr. Sprague, well, prior to July 22nd, Mr. Sprague had engaged in individual meetings with several of the airport board members to try and assess what they were coalescing around, if you will. July 22nd, Mr. Sprague submitted his letter of resignation to the airport board members and the BOCC. In his letter, he immediately resigned as chair and then dated his resignation from the board to January 31 of 2023. Now, this is in July, but he dated his resignation 6 months later. Several of the board members conjectured that Mr. Sprague was banking on a failed reelection campaign on my part, which would then open up the door for him to be reappointed by a new Board of County Commissioners. Mr. Sprague's resignation letter makes several accusations regarding me that are not supported by the record, and attributes outreach on behalf of Mr. Crowder to appease Mr. Sprague's ego as reaffirmations that Sprague was doing a good job. After the resignation letter received by the board, I went to Mr. Crowder and said, did this satisfy your concerns with your complaints? And he said, I want to talk to my attorney, and then I will get back to you in the next day or so. He got back to me the next day and said he's satisfied with his claims, but he's withdrawing it with reservations that as long as Mr. Sprague was on the airport board, that he wanted to be ensure that he would be protected from future hostile acts or intimidation, and we assured him that he would. In November 2022, the board advertises to fill the soon-to-be vacated seat on the airport board. 2 members of the public applied, Mr. Clyde Hoxie and Mr. Tom Simpson. The BOC practice, as we discussed yesterday, is when 2 commissioners have finished their interview process and have reflected that to the clerk then prepares a resolution for the board action. The final decision is not made until the board takes its action. Commissioner Kearns and French made their selection known to the clerk in the last week of December. After that, the advertisement was closed. Then Commissioner Cooney interjected a new candidate for BOC's consideration. This new candidate was not made available to Commissioner Kearns or French for review. The new candidate is Ms. Kelly Fukai, a previous employee for SIA. Ms. Fukai, the candidate brought forward by Commissioner Cooney, without any review from the Commissioners French or Kearns, is a previous employee of Spokane Airports under Crowder's leadership. Imagine, if you will, that you have a company, an employee leaves and then comes back to be your boss. And you don't think that's going to create some tension? Ms. Fukai is also a previous employee of Avista with a past relationship with Mr. Sprague. They worked together at Avista Corporation. Mr. Sprague's letter of recommendation for Ms. Fukai makes several assertions about Fukai's service on the State Transportation Commission and how that would be beneficial to SIA. I spoke with leadership at WashDOT to determine the validity of that statement and was informed that Transportation Commission has no oversight or involvement with commercial airports. To appoint a previous employee to be a board member over the current CEO is problematic on so many levels and could be interpreted as a hostile act. Question to ask when considering Ms. Fukai's application: what skill sets does she offer that will be additive to the skills already present at SIA or on the board? Her previous position has been filled by a new employee. The airport already has nationally recognized legislative consultants working at both the state and national levels. Our candidate Simpson is a licensed pilot. He has, the airport board currently has no airport pilot on it. Mr. Crowder is in fact a licensed pilot. Mr. Simpson is the president of Ignite Northwest, which the county has supported both last year and this year financially because of his work in business incubation and expansion and because of its experience at business recruitment. The point of all of this is to, one, inform my fellow commissioners that this appointment has history to it. And we need to be very diligent about how we move forward. Mr. Crowder has done an absolutely stellar job. And it's because the city and the county have worked together to make sure that the composition of the airport board has people that will support and to some extent lead that effort to expand the airport and to serve this community. Board composition currently includes both, as I mentioned earlier, President Brian Biggs and myself, but the other members are Ezra Eckhart, who represents the financial institution, Jennifer West, who represents marketing and communications, Max Cooney, who represents the construction industry because we are engaged in the millions of dollars worth of construction out at the airport. Mr. Sprague was brought onto the board for that governmental affairs. And since then, we've fulfilled those facilities and that function with staff and outside consultants. So we don't need that function on the airport board. Whether it was Mr. Sprague or Mr. Fukai, that function is already being taken care of. And then you have the joint appointment with Nancy Voorhees, who was the previous business manager, president for Life Flight, which was a tenant out at Phelps Field. So the composition of the board is composed to where it will help support the expansion and growth of the airport. Business expansion Tom Simpson. Airport pilot, Tom Simpson. We want to see and grow, create more jobs, Tom Simpson. He brings assets to the airport that will make the airport better. The other two candidates don't do that. Clyde Hossey, an outstanding individual, a personal friend, somebody that has worked for me on projects of mine in the private sector going back 40 years. The question I ask is, does the airport board need a landscape architect, or do we need somebody that will grow business? And so that's why I made the decision to support Tom Simpson. I'm not sure, there's two reasons to move forward with this appointment and not delay it. There's three reasons, actually. One, provide some transition. Two, respect the process that we've already been through. And things are not going to change as we try and drag this thing out. Let's provide some security for and clear leadership for the airport board. And so I think timeliness is important, that we take care of business now and move forward. Thank you.
So we're speaking about the motion to delay right now, right? To continue. I'll just speak to the motion then. I hadn't received this packet from you until now. I hadn't seen this presentation, so this is all new information to me. My understanding is that the position is not vacant until the end of January, so there is some time to fill that. My motion is for more time, and I think you're making my argument for me by providing all of this history, which sounds that there's some serious contention that's been involved. As to the process, I didn't object to the process with regard to the other appointments today because I looked at all of the sheets, and there was only one applicant for all those positions. This is the only position, I believe, on our list where there's multiple applicants and there's different commissioners favoring different applicants. So that's why it's different to me. The process that you laid out, I think we should use. This is a new board. And I would like the opportunity to look at both of these individuals and make an informed decision. That's what I'm asking for with the delay. I just want to make clear for the record that my request for more time is not reflective of my assessment of the merit of either or any of the three applicants that have put their names forward. Personally, I'm very appreciative of all these individuals for all these positions, including the folks who have applied to serve on the airport board, who are willing to give their time, like to do the things that you laid out to help support the airport. But I am, given the history here, given that there's a clear divide, would like a couple weeks to review this in more detail and make a more informed decision.
So there is another process that the county has used and will continue to use based upon our conversations yesterday, and that is to have the membership of the existing boards go through the interview process and make a recommendation. And then that way it takes it out of this environment, and clearly there are challenges with the process up to this point. So if we are going to delay it, I guess what I'm wondering is, would we be better served by delaying it and allowing the airport board to conduct the interview process? Let them come forward with whatever recommendation they think is going to be best suited to meet the needs of the airport. Because the bottom line is, we should all be here to be able to promote the assets for the county. And if that board is best suited to promote that asset, then let's be informed by them. And I would be okay with that. What's your reaction to that?
I'd have to think about it. I'm not sure today. I know I need more time, and that's the
Okay.
motion.
Okay.
I think she's. Okay.
Sorry, Commissioner Waldron, go ahead.
Okay, yes, I also want to say just thank you to Commissioner French for providing the info again today. So I think we kind of got caught in between the 3-member commission and the 5-member commission with these appointments coming through. I didn't even know there was 3 until maybe Friday last week, and I think I got the applications yesterday, and I started to review them, and they all look like, you know, qualified individuals that bring a lot of different experiences. So like we discussed yesterday at our county commissioner, one of our many meetings yesterday, the process when you have multiple candidates would be to allow the commissioner just to read the applications, maybe make a call, do an interview, check in with folks, and then make a recommendation. So that's why I'm supporting the motion, just to give us a little time to do that. But I really appreciate all the background. I think Mr. Crowder's done an excellent job at the airport. There's amazing things happening for the size of our airport, and I thank you for your service to the airport board for many years. And I would appreciate a couple weeks to look through the information, speak with you more, Commissioner French, and have an opportunity to, you know, move forward a candidate that's going to be a good fit for the board. So I don't know, again, about what process changes we would need to do to have the airport board, you know, go through the process of reviewing applications themselves. But, you know, I'm open to that idea, but I think we'd have to update our processes for that, and that requires a little more conversation.
The alternative would be, and we have done this before, Commissioner Kearns can attest to this, I mean, this board can be the interviews, and so we can just bring all 3 candidates in, and we could interview them. An observer from the outside might look at the history that I provided you, and I really was reluctant. I mean, I struggled with whether I wanted to bring all that history forward or not. I was hoping that we would have it behind us, quite honestly, and that this would not surface again. But then with the recent altercation to the process that we've had for, you know, at least a decade that I've been here, being altered at the 11th hour, it just, you know, I don't know what all the motivations are for all of these activities. I don't want to attribute anything to them, but it is concerning. And it's not only concerning to me, but it was also concerning to the airport board, who was, I mean, as and I can provide you the letter of resignation for Mr. Crowder, or Mr. Sprague. He even acknowledged that it was clear that the airport board was ready to make a vote to remove him as chair, and his concern was actually a vote to remove him from the board altogether. And that's in his resignation letter. So, I mean, he knew that he was at risk and that there were clear violations. So I was hoping that that would settle things down. But this resurgence of this energy to try and control what happens with regard to the environment for Mr. Crowder, this has been an extremely stressful situation. The stress that it has placed on Mr. Crowder, he went from being the chair of the National Aerospace Airport Executives to 1 week later having to be subjected to these kind of accusations. And talk about from the peak to the valley, that's what happened. And so it was a stressful time. And I did not lead the effort for the airport board to come to their conclusion. I think they came to their conclusion independently. The reason why I led the investigation is because I was the vice chair. I had no other political motivation other than it's my duty as the vice chair to take that complaint and investigate, find out if there's merits, and then take it back to the board. So we were prepared to take it to the board and have the board take whatever action they were going to take. And prior to that, then Mr. Sprague submitted his letter of resignation because I think that he knew what direction the board was moving into. That wasn't as a result of my leadership. That was other board members having conversations about how do we protect the airport and how do we protect the asset that is moving the airport forward. So I'm happy with, if this board wanted to have the interviews, great. The airport board wanted to have the interviews, great. I think because of the history, I think it would be good to be able to take this into a different environment to be able to find a solution. Because where we're at now, obviously, we're not going to get to a solution. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion from the commissioners there?
I was new on this board once as well, so I completely understand what Commissioner Jordan is talking about, having additional time. And so I will support his amendment to continue this for a 2-week period. But as to Commissioner French's point, there's multiple ways that we can interview these candidates, whether it's the airport board themselves or us as the BOCC, but I will be supporting your amendment.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I will just say that the process did not close. It was just January 31st I asked the clerk of the board if the process had closed. I will state that, yes, I knew that there was 2 commissioners that had put their name down for one person, another had put their name down for another person. So now that it was going to be on the agenda with 5 commissioners, I didn't feel that that was a unanimous decision to come to the board. So that's why additional names an additional name came in. It was put on the list. Mr. Amacio, we can talk to him about it. We can talk about this later as we all go to get the 2 weeks if the amendment passes. So I will ask for the question. The motion is an amended motion to continue the motion for Tom Simpson for 2 weeks. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That will then take us to item number 6 on today's agenda, which is a public hearing item, of which Jessica Pilgrim is there, I know, and is going to help us through this. As we do know that there's potentially some amendments that we may do. So Jessica, I'm going to have you speak to the item, and then I will open up for public hearing, and then we will potentially continue that public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And eventually we'll have Scott Chesney, Director of Building and Planning, or I guess just planning now, speak to the actual ordinance. But just for an overview, what the board will be considering today is the proposed ordinance to change the Planning Commission. And we did publish that ordinance on December 30th. So that is the form that this board is looking at. And Mr. Scott Chesney will speak to that. But my thought on how you will proceed is you'll hear the presentation from Mr. Chesney on the proposed changes to the Planning Commission. If there are any motions to amend the ordinance as it was posted on the 30th, we would consider those motions to amend and then consider passing them. And after any proposed amendments are made, we can make additional, if a proposed amendment is made, then we need to continue the hearing to consider the proposed amended ordinance to next week. And we would post, just so the public is aware, we would post any amended strike-throughs on our website by tomorrow morning for the public to see and consider at the hearing that would be taken up next week. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Chesney on the ordinance as published on December 30th.
Commissioners, thank you for your time and attention to this. One of the many changes as you move into a 5-commissioner structure. As you probably remember, the Planning Commission currently consists of 2 representatives from each of the 3 districts plus an at-large member. The transition to the 5-district model, the recommendation is of 1 commissioner nominated or selected who resides in each of the 5 commissioner districts, and then 2 that would be at large. 1 would be selected from any resident in the county that also lives within the urban growth area as defined by the Growth Management Act, and 1 that lives outside of that, in effect representing the rural parts of Spokane County. That keeps the constitution of the commission, the Planning Commission, at 7 members. And then that would also involve a stagger of selections. And so for the first term, there would be from District 1, there would be a 1-year term ending in December 31st, 2023. From District 2, there would be a 2-year term. District 3, 3-year term. District 4, a 4-year term. District 5, a 4-year term. The outside UGA member would be a 3-year term, and within the UGA, a 2-year term. So in a nutshell, we're keeping the 7-member commission, and by statute, representing each district as mathematically equal as possible, allowing for 2 members to be serving at large, and then staggering those initial terms, since they'll all be starting right now, so that as they transition from those, there will be a sequence of 4-year terms after that. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
And just before, I apologize, just for clarity, if the board doesn't have any questions or when you're done asking questions, my recommendation would be that you open it to public comment on the ordinance as proposed first, so we can consider public comments and possibly incorporate those into motions if necessary.
Are there any questions or comments for Scott Chesney on the current item before us?
I just want to thank the staff for the hard work on coming up with options. I may have some concerns about the ultimate outcome of what is decided, but I just appreciate the work put in to try and work through this and give us some viable choices. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, since there are no other questions or comments for Scott Chesney at this point in time, then I will open up this for public hearing. This is item number 6A on today's agenda, in the matter of amending the ordinance to the Spokane County Code 1.06.030 to reflect the change in composition to the Board of County Commissioners and the redistricting pursuant to 2018 Substitute House Bill 2887. Going from 3 to 5 commissioners and the related composition, appointment, and initial term of the Planning Commission for the Spokane County Building and Planning Department. With that, I will now open it up for public comment for item number 6B as presented on today's agenda. I'm seeing nobody online. Anyone in the audience? No one in the audience. Second call for anyone wishing to testify on item number 6A. Or 6A, sorry. If you're on Zoom, maybe raise your hand. Or on the phone, *9. I'm not seeing anyone. Okay, third and final call for anyone wishing to testify. Seeing no one, I will close the public testimony and look to my fellow commissioners.
And I apologize, Commissioner CUNY. We want to keep the public testimony open.
Oh, yes.
Just so
Yes.
that if there are any amendments, we can continue that. So if you wish to retract your closure.
I will. I'm not closing public testimony. I will now not close the public testimony. We will leave it open for a period, I believe, until January 17th. Is that the correct date, Jessica?
I believe that is correct. Yes, 7 days from today, so the 17th if it is continued, so yes.
Okay.
And so at this time, it would be to consider any motions for possible amendments.
Commissioner CUNY, I move that the language of the proposed ordinance be amended to clarify that the nominations of the respective board members is submitted by the nominee, confirmed by a majority vote of the board, and thereafter appointed by the chair.
Okay, I have a motion for that amendment
Second?
and a second. Any further discussion on that amendment? Commissioner Waldorf?
I have some concerns with some of the language, but that particular language, I think, clarifies the very messy RCW that sets out the role of the board as to nominating and then appointing members of that the chair appoints only after this board has approved. So I'm going to support that motion to amend on that first topic.
Very good. Commissioner Jordan?
I would agree with that as a lawyer who's had to practice dealing with RCWs. Sometimes they're not written in the clearest way possible, and I think that that proposal accurately reflects what seems to be the legislative intent. So I would agree and support that.
Okay. There's a motion and a second for the amendment on clarifying the chair role in the process. Since I don't have the wording right in front of me, I'll state it that way. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any other motions?
Commissioner CUNY, I move that the language in subsection 3BI of the proposed ordinance be amended, changing shall to shall have an opportunity to, and adding that a failure to provide a timely nomination shall be considered a waiver of the opportunity to nominate.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second to amend subsection 3BI as stated by Commissioner Kearns. Any further discussion? Commissioner Jordan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is where we start to get into an area where I have some concerns about the proposed ordinance. Just briefly, the Planning Commission, I think, has an important role to play in making findings and recommendations and advising the county on growth decisions that shape our future as a community. And I am concerned that when we get into section 3B, I and II, we're dealing with the part of the ordinance that talks about urban growth area related commissioners, UGA related, or sorry, yeah, commissioners to the Plan Commission. And in reviewing the statute, RCW 3670-080, it seems that that particular category of planning commissioner is not specifically identified in statute that I could see. And when we talked about it yesterday in the meeting, I asked, is a UGA-related planning commissioner recognized in statute? And I think the answer was no, and I think that's what the statute says. So I've got a problem with the structure there in terms of following the statute. I think it's important that decisions around growth be very cautious as a county about following the statute because we don't want any disruptions to processes that are years in the making around growth decisions. So I worry about that when we're creating a category that I can't find in the law. I think the law is quite clear that the county can choose 5, 7, or 9 members for the Planning Commission. It seems that there's potentially a choice that might be made to choose 7. Personally, I think that is the least mathematically representative of the numbers. that are available. If we choose 5, then we each get 1. That's pretty clearly mathematically representative. But there have been some, I think, viable concerns raised about whether a 5-member planning commission would be effective with quorums, and there's a lot of work to do. So 7, in my view, basically guarantees that each district commissioner would get to nominate 1 person from their district, but there would only be 2 remaining seats, and those individuals nominated would live in one of our districts, and therefore, essentially, a minority of the county commissioner districts would have 2 folks on the planning commission. The majority would not have a second member. That's why I'd prefer that we have 9 and just strike the reference to UGA-related members. I think that's consistent with other counties I looked at in doing some research, like Yakima, like Whatcom County, for example, has a 9-member planning commission, but 5 county commissioners. So I think it's as mathematically representative as possible is what the statute's saying. So I think 9 would work, and then we don't run into any concerns about UGA-related members. I think the statute's clear also in the process, and that it says each commissioner shall submit a list, and that's how these folks get nominated. So when we start saying shall have the opportunity and failure to nominate, it waives is just not in the statute. So that's why I'm opposed to the motion, and I would ask that we consider a simple 9, use the standard process that other counties use, and simply make it as mathematically representative as possible. So to me, that's about following the law and also having better numerical representation for the districts.
Commissioner French?
Yes, so a question for my fellow commissioner. When you talk about mathematically representative and the urban growth boundary and growth for the community talks about predominantly that area that lies outside of municipal boundaries. And since that is the primary objective of the Planning Commission and the Growth Management Act, the proportionality based upon your description would tell me that the majority of those members on the Planning Commission should represent unincorporated areas because we have no jurisdiction inside a municipal boundary. That is controlled by the City Council. So when you look at, Commissioner Kearns, Commissioner Cooney's, or my districts, in terms of population and proportionality, clearly we've got a greater level of population that's in the unincorporated area than districts 1 and 2. So would you anticipate then that those three districts would have 2 members on this planning commission then? I guess I'm trying to understand the proportionality argument in terms of what the Growth Management Act is really trying to accomplish. It's talking about future growth, not existing growth. Existing growth is already in the municipalities, and we have no jurisdiction at all there, none, 0. So for what we do have jurisdiction over, that's in the unincorporated area. So help me understand the argument with regard to proportionality.
It sounds like, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to understand that your concern is that those who live outside the UGA are more affected by growth UGA decisions, right?
Yeah.
And I would only say that I'm referencing what the statute says, right? So the structure of county commissioners and councils in the state of Washington is typically some form of district, right? Whether that's primary or general election. And this statute about where and how and who the planning commission members should be takes into account that the districts have a role, regardless of whether they're in or outside UGA. So I would just suggest that distinction or that concern you have might be a policy concern that you have, but but it's not reflected in the statute and how the statute directs planning commissions to be structured. Responding to the policy argument, if it's helpful, I think that the folks in my district and that live inside urban growth boundaries are affected by growth decisions in a variety of ways, right? They might live in a school district that's growth affects their taxes around that. They pay property taxes to the county. They might have traffic and infrastructure impacts from growth. So I think that I just don't agree fundamentally with the concept that only those who live outside the UGA are affected by growth. I think everyone in the county is affected by growth, and that's probably why they wrote the statute this way, to reflect that the geographic districts are the way that the legislature dictated these positions will be picked. I hope that helps.
Well, I appreciate the clarity. I mean, I don't want to give credit to the legislature that they anticipated that there would be a county with 5 commissioners in it that was not created by charter. If we had Spokane County created by charter, these questions would have been answered as part of that charter. So, you know, it's always a challenge to say they created legislation to deal with the situation that existed at that time. We are unique, and I have trouble with the fact that we're trying to fit a unique situation into legislation that never anticipated this happening. And so, so then it leads me to say, okay, there's the letter of the law, and then there's the spirit of the law. What was the intent with that legislation? And I think the legislation was intended to deal with growth. And that's why the legislature made counties, not cities, counties, the determinant in terms of where growth was going to happen and how it was going to happen. And so if we're not growing, then it doesn't matter, because nothing's happening. Whether it's inside the city or in the county, it doesn't matter. Nothing's happening. But we are growing, and we're growing at a very accelerated pace here over the last several years, and being able to plan for and anticipate this growth is critical. Otherwise, we are going to end up with the challenges you alluded to with regard to overpopulated schools and traffic and other urban amenities that are not available. So this is, and for the public, this is part of the challenge you're going to see this board struggle with for quite a while, is that we are a unique duck. The legislature, other than their infinite wisdom of creating 5-commissioner district without any clarity about how we deal with these issues, leaves all of those things up to us with legislation that never anticipated us. And so, I appreciate your argument. I'm not there yet, but at least I appreciate what you're trying to represent. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the amendment for subsection 3BI? Commissioner Waldron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some of the same concerns that these 2 categories for the last 2 plan commissioners, to me, seem not consistent with the statute. I know it's hard. We're dividing odd numbers by odd numbers. We got 5 districts, but the statute says 5, 7, or 9. I do believe 5, 7, or 9 would be best to have a robust group of individuals leading us and advising this board on important growth decisions. And Commissioner French is right. I mean, this is a very important group, and there's a lot of things coming up on the horizon. We met with Mr. Chesney last week, Commissioner Jordan and I, to get up to speed, and there's a lot coming down the pike around the urban growth areas and the comp plan update by 2026. So there's a lot going on. We want to have a good group of folks. I'm just having the heartburn with the inside-outside UGA because I don't see how it gets us to being more mathematically representative. You could end up with 3 individuals all from the same district. And so, anyway, that's why I'm going to not support the motion to make a change on that.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment for subsection 3BI? Seeing none? Oh, Commissioner Jordan?
Just very briefly, I just want to thank Commissioner French for hearing me out, and I share your belief that we need to, as a community, plan for growth. My personal view is legislature did what it did, right, when it changed the model here. I do think there are other counties that have, like Whatcom County, I mentioned, has 5 commissioner members or council members and 9 planning commission members. And I think I would advise, suggest that we just do the darn best we can to follow the statute as clearly as possible. And it seems like an undue risk to me to invent a new category that as far as we know, nobody else in the state uses. So I would just suggest that keeping it simple, 9 would be the cautious, safe approach.
So, and I believe Whatcom County is a charter county. And as a charter county, the voters of Whatcom County made the determination as to what the structure is going to be, not the legislature. And so I think that's the difference. If the voters say they want a planning commission of, 25, that's great. That's their right to make that decision through the charter process. And so, I'm happy to support whatever they decide. That's, as I've been on the record a lot here with this 5-commissioner transition, I am indifferent as to what the voters want. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if the voters want 25 commissioners and we can figure out a way to pay for it, God bless them. But I'm also struck by the fact that LA County, a county of a little over 10 million, has 5 commissioners. So, it's, I don't want to fight past battles, but trying to find a path forward is the challenge. And so, if let's say you go to nine planning commission members, that means that one district is going to have 1 commissioner and all the other 4 are going to have 2. And I don't know how that passes mustard with regard to proportionality when clearly one district, and I don't care which district it is, has got half the representation that the other 4 do. And so that's where my challenge is with regard to 9. It's too bad the legislature wouldn't let us go to 10. As I said yesterday, I'd be happy with 10. Each one of us get 2. God bless you. Have a nice day. But, unfortunately, the legislature didn't contemplate where we are at and stuff. So anyway, it's part of the ongoing discussion. It'll be interesting to see how we resolve this.
Okay, so I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of amending subsection 3BI, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, and the motion carries 3-2. Are there any other motions to be made today to this ordinance?
Commissioner Cuny, I move that the language in subsection 3BI and 3BII of the proposed ordinance be amended to remove the requirement that the nominee for the UGA-related members be from the nominating commissioner's district and replace that language with the requirement that the nominee instead reside either within or outside of the UGA as applicable.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to amend the language of 3BI and 3BII as just stated by Commissioner Kearns. Any further discussion?
I'll just say same concerns as articulated before with the non-UGA and UGA membership.
Thank you.
Same for me.
Commissioner Jordan?
Thank you. Just concerned about RCW 3670080 that says each member of the board shall submit to the chair a list of nominees residing in his or her district, and the selections come from that list. So I worry that we're going outside that, but otherwise similar comments.
Thank you. Any further comments, Commissioner French? Nope.
So, I know that we're trying to replicate the language in the statute as much as possible, and this is contemplating that the nominations come from commissioners and commissioner districts. I would be willing to consider that maybe that nomination for that other person came from a different group, came from maybe the Planning Commission itself, or maybe some other entity that would be impartial, but also invested into the growth of the community and stuff. So I'm just trying to find a path forward so that it doesn't look like there's that imbalance and stuff. So just throw that out for you. And we don't have to decide that today. We can always come back and revisit that. But, I think that might be an option available to us. So for what it's worth.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I have a motion and a second for amending item number subsection 3BI and 3BII as again stated by Commissioner Kearns. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
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 The motion carries 3-2. Now, this will be an item that then we're continuing the public hearing so that the public can make comment on those changes that were just made. And that continuation will be on January 17th. Are there any other items?
Yeah, Commissioner Keeney, before we move on, I move to authorize staff and legal to make changes to any other sections of the ordinance necessary to effectuate and to make consistent the amendments approved at today's meeting, and also to correct any minor numbering or Scrivener's errors.
Second.
Okay, I have an motion and a second. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I will
sorry.
then, Commissioner Waldron.
And I'm sorry, it's our first meeting. Is this a normal practice when we extend the hearing for another week? Or, if we extend the hearing for another week, is it a normal practice to do this? I just haven't seen that before.
Normal is a
Wait a
interesting
minute. Can you tell
word.
I'm not the lawyer up here? Okay.
The board is allowed to continue public hearings to a date certain without needing to renotice it. And if there are amendments or you're directing staff to take further action, it is common to direct staff to take whatever action has been taken and then continue it to a date certain. So it's not unusual. Did that answer your question? Or did I dance around your question like a lawyer?
I mean, I don't have a problem with staff, making sure whatever was done in a meeting is accurately expressed. I don't necessarily support the amendments. So I guess, okay, thanks for answering my question.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. I believe that was unanimous. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That amendment carries 5 to allow for those corrections to be made.
And Commissioner
Mr.
Keeney, I move that public testimony be left open and that the public hearing be continued to Tuesday, January 17th, 2023, to consider and take action on the proposed ordinance with the amendments proposed and passed at today's hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until January 17th. Any further question or any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, I think that will take us to the end of our meeting. CEO Scott Simmons, is there any additional items?
No, Commissioner Cuny, there are not. From me.
Thank you. Does that,
Commissioner
Does
Cuny, in your absence from the office, can we use your stamp today on everything that was voted on?
yes, please do. Thank you. Any other items? Seeing none, then I will adjourn the meeting for today. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.